Welcome to TKT course by Teacher Teresa, Module 1, Part 3, Background to Language Teaching, Unit 17, Practice Activities and Tasks for Language and Skills Development. Contents. Understanding practice activities and tasks for language and skills development. What are practice activities and tasks for language and skills development? Practice activities and tasks for language and skills development are designed to give learners opportunities to use language in meaningful ways. They allow learners to practice grammar, vocabulary, functional language, and the subskills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. These activities and tasks come in different types, each with specific purposes and uses. Their overall aim is to build accuracy, fluency, and confidence for real-life communication. A framework for language practice, from controlled to free. Look at these 3 writing activities. How much control do learners have over the language they use? Activity 1. Fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb to be. 1. I, happy today. 2. We, in the classroom. 3. The cat, on the bed. 4. You, very kind. 5. It, a sunny day. Activity 2. Write a message to a friend inviting them to an event. Include what the event is, where it will happen, when it will happen, why they should come. Activity 3. Write a letter to a family member explaining something exciting that happened at school. These activities allow learners to practice language in different ways. Activity 1 is a controlled, restricted practice activity. Learners can use only specific language items. Gives learners practice in using language accurately. Is an exercise. Focuses on practicing correct language forms. Activity 2 is a less controlled, freer practice activity. Learners have some choice over the language they use. Gives learners practice in using language accurately and in communicating meaningfully. Is a task. Engages learners in producing language for a real-world purpose. Activity 3 is a free practice activity. Learners can use language without restriction. Gives learners practice in communicating meaningfully. Is a task. Encourages authentic language use for real communication. Speaking and writing activities can be categorized according to how much control learners have over their language use. Controlled, freer, free. Each category of activity has its own focus and purpose, and makes use of different types of activities to support learning. Controlled activities are highly structured, and focus on accuracy and language form. They provide clear guidance, and limit the language learners can use, helping them make fewer mistakes. These activities are typically designed to give repeated practice in grammar, vocabulary, and sentence patterns, and learners' responses are largely predictable because the teacher determines the content and form of the language. Examples include copying words or sentences, gap-fill exercises, matching tasks, punctuation and word order exercises, sentence completion and transformation tasks, jazz chants, controlled dialogues, and drills. Drills are a special type of controlled activity, and come in 4 main types. Choral drills. The whole class repeats model language together. Individual drills. One student at a time repeats the model language. Substitution drills. Learners replace a word or phrase in a sentence. Transformation drills. Learners change the sentence structure while keeping the meaning. Free activities allow learners to use the language without restrictions while completing a task. They focus on developing communication skills, giving learners the opportunity to experiment with language and build confidence. These activities often lead to authentic language use, and help learners practice fluency in meaningful, interactive contexts. Since it is not always predictable what language learners will use, free activities cannot be used to provide practice in specific language forms. Examples include writing letters, stories, emails, essays, invitations, reports, and compositions. Participating in discussions, debates, role plays, and mingling. Sharing or comparing ideas, information, and experiences. Conducting surveys. Engaging in problem-solving tasks. And carrying out categorization and ranking activities. Freer activities fall between controlled and free practice. They offer partial guidance such as a topic, prompts, key phrases, or sentence starters while still allowing learners to generate much of the language themselves. Because the task is partially structured, the teacher can predict to some extent what language learners will need to use. These activities help learners integrate new and familiar language. They support both accuracy and fluency, enabling learners to produce meaningful texts while practicing target forms. Examples include writing guided stories or emails, completing sentence prompts or gap fills, creating dialogues or role plays with set scenarios, describing pictures or events, participating in information gap tasks, conducting surveys with specific questions, and solving problems with partial instructions. Controlled activities give lots of guidance and support on language use, freer activities give some, and free activities give none. The less guidance an activity provides, the more freedom learners have. It is important to note that activities do not always fit neatly into the categories of controlled, freer, or free. It depends on how the teacher uses them. Let's take dialogue as an example. A teacher could give learners a written dialogue about ordering food in a restaurant, with some missing words. Learners read it aloud and fill in the gaps. This would be a controlled activity, as the teacher is guiding exactly what language the learners use. At the end of a lesson on shopping, the teacher could ask learners to have a dialogue in pairs, where one plays a customer and the other a shop assistant. They use the target phrases they have just learnt, but also add some of their own words. This would be a freer activity, as learners have the chance to adapt and extend the language they have practiced. In a final stage, the teacher could ask learners to create their own restaurant dialogue. Learners decide what to say, explain their choices, and respond naturally to their partner. There are no set phrases or prompts. This would be an example of a free dialogue, as the teacher does not control the language learners will produce. Designing activities and tasks for receptive skills development. Activities and tasks for developing receptive skills such as listening and reading cannot be divided into controlled, freer, and free categories, because their focus is on comprehension, not on producing language. Look at the following 6 activities. Decide which reading or listening sub-skill they practice, and the name of each activity type. 1. Read the story. Is the main character a child, an adult, an animal? 2a. Listen to the recording and choose the best answer. The main reason for the school trip is A. To visit a museum, B. To go hiking, C. To watch a play. 2b. Now listen again. Are these sentences true or false? A. The school trip is next week. B. The trip will last 2 days. C. The students will travel by bus. 3. In your groups, look at these pictures of a birthday party. Read the text carefully, then arrange the events in the correct order. Number the pictures from 1 to 7. 4. Listen to the dialogue and fill in this form with a partner. Customer's name, order, delivery date. 5. Read the first half of the article on page 50 and answer the questions. Your partner will read the second half on page 75. When you have both finished, discuss any parts you didn't find answers to, and share the information. 6. Listen to the recording carefully and complete the table. Animal, elephant, penguin, kangaroo, habitat, diet, average lifespan. Here are the answers to the questions above. Activity, sub-skill, type of activity. 1. Reading for gist, choosing from a list, multiple choice, an activity in which you choose the best answer from 3 or more possible answers. 2. Listening for specific information, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, an activity in which you decide whether statements are correct or incorrect. 3. Reading for detail, cohesion, jumbled pictures, jumbled equals in the wrong order. 4. Listening for specific information, form filling. 5. Reading for specific information or detail, jigsaw reading, where each student is given only part of a text and needs to tell other students about his or her part of the text, so that in the end each student has all the information from the text. 6. Listening for specific information or detail, table completion. These activities differ in the skills and subskills they focus on, as well as the interaction patterns they use. Some focus on reading for gist, others on reading for detail or cohesion, and some on listening for specific information. Some activities are done individually, while others involve pair or group work. However, the skills and interaction patterns are not fixed to the activity type, because the same activity can develop different skills, depending on how it is used. For example, Activity 3, Jumbled Pictures, and Activity 5, Jigsaw Reading, mainly develop reading for detail. However, since both involve an information gap, they can also improve speaking and listening when learners discuss their ideas and share their parts with partners. Similarly, multiple choice questions can be used for reading, listening, grammar, or vocabulary activities and can focus on understanding the main idea, identifying specific details, making predictions, drawing conclusions, or inferring meaning. These tasks can be done individually, in pairs, in small groups, or adapted for whole class participation. Key concepts and the language teaching classroom. Read these tips and mark the ones that matter most to you. When choosing practice activities and tasks for language development, the teacher decides whether learners need controlled, freer, or free practice, and whether the focus should be on accuracy or communication. This decision depends on the learner's level, the language being taught, the lesson objectives, and the learning context. In selecting practice activities and tasks for skill development, the teacher identifies which skill or sub-skill to target. The choice is guided by learners' needs, lesson goals, and the type of task that best supports comprehension and interaction. Using different kinds of activities helps balance accuracy and fluency, while targeting specific skills and sub-skills. A mix of controlled, freer, and free tasks provides varying levels of support, guiding learners from structured practice to independent use. Varying activity types such as gap fills, role plays, jigsaw tasks, or surveys also keeps lessons interesting and dynamic, targets different learning goals, and allows learners to practice language and skills in different ways. In a well-structured lesson, activities are usually linked, so that learning develops in a logical sequence, moving gradually from simple to more complex tasks. Each step naturally prepares learners for the next. This step-by-step approach reduces mental load, recycles target language, keeps learners motivated, and provides clear points for feedback. There are several ways to link activities in lessons, and these are a few examples. Language-focused lessons. Presentation, controlled practice, freer practice, free production. Lead-in, task, presentation, further tasks. Skills-based lessons. Warmer and/or lead-in, comprehension activities, tasks, post-task activities. Comprehension activities for receptive skills, listening and reading. Usually focus first on the general idea or gist, then move on to sub-skills such as finding details, understanding cohesion, making inferences, and noticing text structure. They then focus on the language used in the text, such as vocabulary, grammar, and useful expressions. Example 1. A listening skills lesson. Lead in, introducing the topic of the listening, and pre-teaching key vocabulary and expressions. Comprehension tasks. Listening to the recording and answering true-false questions, to understand the main idea, listening to the recording again and filling in a table with specific details. Post-task activities. Discussing the content of the conversation in pairs and sharing personal opinions. Example 2. A topic-based skills lesson. Lead in, introducing the topic, and pre-teaching key vocabulary and expressions. Tasks. Listening to a conversation on the topic, reading a related text. Post-task activities. Discussing the topic and/or highlighting useful language, writing a short summary of the topic. This type of lesson, called an integrated skills lesson, combines different language skills, with each activity building on the previous one, allowing learners to practice skills in a connected sequence. See Units 19, 20 and 21 for planning activities for lessons, and Unit 27 for language useful to the teacher for carrying out activities. Thank you.